The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Welcome once again to The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn Thing with industry professionals Mike McCarty and James Knight. This week, the Howling and Wolf Man. Apparently I'm supposed to put a pause in there because it's 2 words. Wolf Man. Little side note here, I worked with Joe Dante twice on Looney Tunes Back in Action and Burying the X, 2 of his films that were not critically acclaimed. I just am very upset that I didn't work with him on The Howling, because then I could have possibly met Dee Wallace, the most beautiful woman that ever existed. Back to the show. Go ahead, boys.
Hello, caller, and welcome to the show.
I've been having a slight problem. Every time I take my girlfriend to the movies, she doesn't like the movie I pick.
Well, that's terrible. Tonight's episode brought to you by Monster Energy Drink, because... and also...
Yeah, we're not here to fuck around tonight. We're here to talk about werewolves.
Werewolves.
Werewolf.
Their castle. I'm sorry, I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh, The Howling.
The Howling,
And
1981.
Wolf.
Man.
Not to be confused with the Wolf Man.
Nope.
This is Wolf.
Wolf.
Man.
And The Howling.
Good stuff.
That is good stuff.
I am a big werewolf fan.
As am I.
Yes. I know we are both big werewolf fans. I notice you've even got your, is that a Frank Frazetta werewolf t-shirt on?
It is.
For this recording?
It's Frazetta
Very
werewolf versus Dracula. And we all know who would win that.
Yeah, well, who we want to win that?
I mean, it would be a werewolf. A werewolf always beats a vampire. You know, that's a question.
You think that's true?
I do. That's a question I ask people when they come to the shop to interview. You know, besides like, what's your strong points? What's your weak points? You know, what is your
what do you like
your
to do
rate?
on the weekend? What's your favorite candy bar?
Mm-hmm. And I always
size
say
10s. What are you wearing there? That's a nice pump. I've been looking something in it for a kitten heel, sling back. You mind if I try those on? Just the standard questions.
Just your typical stuff.
I'm sorry, what do you ask them?
I say, who do you think would win between a werewolf and a vampire? And they always look at me like they're like, what? Why are you asking me this question? But then they're always excited to come up with an answer.
Well, I've asked the question a lot of people, which one would you rather be, werewolf or vampire? Because
Werewolf.
I think that says a lot about people nowadays.
Sure.
Because in my mind, at least like today's vampires,
Nosferatu notwithstanding.
Yes, this is how we play the game.
most of the time, vampires these days are like the perfect version of yourself, right? You're young, you're sexy, you're charming, you can fly, you're super fast. It's like everything, the best version of you. Whereas a werewolf is like becoming something completely different.
Yeah, it's unleashing the beast within. Everyone's got the beast within.
Within.
The beast within. Which is
there's
another
something-
fun 80s movie.
Just transformative about being a werewolf. So I think most people I ask that question to always go with vampire, but personally, I have always gone with werewolf, and I don't know if that's because I'm somewhat an insecure person who thinks that being something else completely would be better than the ideal version of myself. But I've just always dug werewolves and that whole transformative nature about them. You know?
Do you howl at the moon on occasion when it's full?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
me
yeah.
too.
Don't you have to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that everybody does. If everyone doesn't, then you should.
You're missing out. It's a little
Yeah.
bit like when I'm driving in the car and I pass a field full of cows. You gotta
And
move.
you go,
You gotta move every time. No, but I've always loved the transformation. I think we talked about it on like a Patreon thing too. It's like even back in like comic books, those frames where they would show like Bruce Banner transforming into the Hulk or Ghost Rider going from Johnny Blaze into Ghost Rider. And in the werewolf movies, of course, it's that you're just waiting.
yeah.
You want to see how do they pull off the transformation every time.
And nowadays it's garbage. But in 1981, it was cool.
Boy, early 80s gave us some absolute bangers when it comes to werewolf transformations.
Yeah, because this movie came out first, then American Werewolf in London came out. And people always try and loop Wolfen into this as well. But Wolfen is not a werewolf movie.
Not werewolves.
And that is what pisses people off when they see it, because they think it's a werewolf movie. And they're like, well, that was stupid. I think Wolfen is a fucking great movie, and
Wolfen's
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's totally cool.
Wolfen has that great predator vision before Predator, you know, seeing through the eyes of the stalker with the infrared sort of eyes on it. Awesome stuff. But let's jump into The Howling.
The Howling.
I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would think for makeup effects artists, certainly of our generation and your age, this must have been an absolutely seminal work. Seminal?
It was.
Is that the right word?
I mean, that sounds gross. Yeah.
The Howling. Had him coming back from... That's not right either.
No.
What I'm saying is The Howling gave you a boner, right? When you saw it.
It totally did. We'll get into that.
Well, start us off. Give us a little taste of The Howling.
All right. The year is 1981. In a world where journalists are reckless, therapists are incompetent, Dick Miller runs a bookstore, and sexy werewolves roam free. From director Joe Dante, who brought you Piranha, and in the future will bring you Gremlins, is a low-budget horror masterpiece. There, I said it. Masterpiece. Sue me. I'm talking about The Howling. Originally based on Gary Brandner's book of the same name. That is until John Sayles came along and gave it the Eddie Quist mid-transformation smile facelift it needed. In this version, we meet Karen White, a TV reporter with a 1,000-yard stare who thinks it's a great idea to confront serial killer Eddie Quist in a seedy adult bookstore.
Bad idea.
You know, for ratings. What could possibly go wrong, you ask? Well, a lot that she can't remember, apparently. After the incident, Karen is sent to a secluded retreat to recover and remember, because what's more relaxing than being surrounded by creepy strangers in the woods playing Cajun music? As Karen delves deeper into the mysteries of the retreat, she discovers a sinister plot involving awkward group therapy sessions and a man stealing Frazetta-looking babe in tight, black, curvy leather, just dripping with seduction and Halloween store caveman jewelry. 12-year-old Mike McCarty was all, "What's up, fantasy woman? I will never, ever, 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 ever forget you." The Howling is a thrilling ride filled with questionable plot points, cringe-worthy, smile-inducing dialogue, and some of the coolest practical werewolf transformations in cinematic history. Rob Bottin, we miss you. Come back to the 5 and dime, Rob Bottin, Rob Bottin. So grab some popcorn, strap yourself in, and try not to think too hard about the logistics of werewolf genitalia, the ethics of broadcasting traumatic events on the television, or the wisdom of hiring a therapist who secretly runs a werewolf cult. Who could have known? It's The Howling, rated R for violence, smoking, and sexy werewolf women. James, what did you think of The Howling?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, rated R for horrifying depictions of werewolf transformation. The Howling also fits into that bag of movies that I saw way too young because of you.
Okay.
You're like, you know what would be great?
Yeah.
5-year-old brother?
Yeah.
The Howling.
Were you 5?
I must have been around then because my mom and dad were still married at this time. We were down in Cincinnati visiting a family friend, and the adults were downstairs, like having a couple cocktails. And they're like, "Oh, there's a TV upstairs. It's a color TV upstairs."
Oh,
like, go
color
ahead.
TV. Yeah, it's got the old click, 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 click on it, right?
Yeah. What did we click over to? But The Howling.
The Howling, rated R. It was probably on HBO or something.
So I don't remember like the whole movie. I don't remember seeing the whole movie, and frankly, so much of it would have gone over my head. But I do remember that
Marsha.
scene. Even Marsha went.
Maybe 5's a little young for Marsha.
Marsha skipped past me. I think I turned 6 that very night. Yeah, but I remember that scene where the reporter is in the cabin and the wolf is trying to bust through the door, and she escapes out the window and chops its hand off with the axe. I very much remember that. And I want to give you a piece of my mind. I remember that bit too.
You know, that was sort of like an ad-lib thing where Joe Dante said, "What do you think you would say?" And Robert Picardo said, I want to give you a piece of my mind. And he thought it was a stupid throwaway line, and it's become pretty iconic.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Since his name came up, I didn't realize until I just rewatched it again. Yes, Robert Picardo. And that's a name that wouldn't have necessarily registered with me. But as I was looking at that guy, I was like, that's the doctor from Star Trek Voyager.
That's right.
And he was also the gym teacher in The Wonder Years. But I'd always seen him markedly bald in everything that I know him in.
Yeah.
And so to see him as this grubby, sleazy dude with long hair.
In a wig.
Yeah, was kind of hysterical. But he's great as
that was his first
Eddie
role,
Quist.
actually, I think.
Really? Well, he's fantastic.
Tortured by Rob Bottin for hours.
Yeah, hours. Because the makeup took hours and the transformation itself takes hours. Like,
Hold on, I'm about to transform into a werewolf.
like, well, I have to get my master's thesis done.
That's okay. This is going to take a while.
As they proceed to like 12 minutes of werewolf transformation.
It is. I think it's literally like 3.5 minutes of just werewolf transformation.
It takes
which
so long.
Is great.
I understand that they fear for their life, but it also looks pretty cool. So I don't blame them for not running out of there.
Standing there for 3 minutes while the werewolf transforms in front of you. You know, I'm going to go get a quick beverage. I got to pee real quick. You'll still be okay with the jaw, with the stretchy? Okay.
I've got to brew the whole pot because it wasn't made. Will still be going through you will. Okay.
Do you want some coffee when this is done?
Yeah. I imagine this takes a lot out of you, so it'll pick me up. But jumping back into this movie again, I hadn't seen it in a while, and a lot of the details kind of escaped me, especially the whole beginning where she is on the track of the serial killer, and she is walking the streets, the sleazy parts of Los Angeles, and she's supposed to meet with this guy in a pornography store that has nudie booths. In the back.
That was an actual pornography store, too, by the way, that they shot in.
Oh, do you have the address?
Wasn't a set. I don't. But I know that Dee Wallace was a little uncomfortable because, she was just like, really? And they had to, put little stickers over things if they were going to be too much on camera so that you couldn't see, things you weren't supposed to.
And by the way, we mentioned pornography, so if you're playing the whole damn thing drinking game at home, remember, you take a shot now.
Every time the Booty Call song plays.
But I think this movie is great, but this movie is also wildly uneven. For me.
Okay.
Because, makeup effects and those fantastic transformations notwithstanding, the beginning of this movie, when she gets in the booth with him and he puts the quarter in the machine and then he kind of forces her to watch this really disturbing, porn film or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And just so
Totally
you know,
fucked up.
I was 12 when this came out, right?
Okay.
And I talked my cool Aunt Mary Jane into taking me to see it. She didn't really know. So
I
in
hope
the
not.
theater, yeah, in the theater, sitting next to cool Aunt Mary Jane, who was like 8 or 9 years older than me, I think. And so she's young too, right?
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the movie theater, and I just remembered like this uncomfortable moment where she raises her hand and puts it over my face, like, I don't think you should be seeing this. And me trying to peer around the fingers and like move my like, oh wow, what's going on? Because this movie was the blossom of like, oh, really? You don't say. Especially when we get to meet Marsha.
Oh, yeah.
Who I'm pretty sure 12-year-old Mike McCarty dressed.
Yeah, it's super disturbing. And then, like the cops will come in because as the story goes, she's on assignment. She's wired so she can communicate to the people as she's gone sort of undercover to meet with this serial killer, Eddie the Mangler. But they, of course, they lose track of the wire. All that neon is messing with the connection. They give some explanation for it. So she's in there as he puts the quarter on. He makes her watch this really disturbing porn movie. And then, she's screaming. And the cops track them down, and they just fire right through the door.
Just blasting through the doors of the porno booths. Probably winged some fucking 40-year-old, twice-divorced alcoholic.
Just trying to get away for a little bit, have some alone time.
He doesn't have a VCR at home.
No.
It was laundry day yesterday, and he's got a ton of quarters. And he's just like, it's just a 2-block walk over to the porn store, and I don't think anybody's watching.
But it's a really disturbing beginning.
It is. Totally.
And so you get these moments which are really cringe-inducing or terrifying, and then you get some stuff that is just so absolutely silly. Like the way this movie ends, and we'll get there eventually, is so ridiculous.
This movie is a satirical take on horror movies, and I mean, it's Joe Dante. Joe Dante likes to smirk at the camera and have a good time. The Piranha and Gremlins. I mean, he's got a good list of things he's been involved in. He grew up working for Roger Corman, right? His very first thing was a Roger Corman thing. I think it's called Hollywood Boulevard. In fact, in the very beginning of the movie, when you see she goes into the telephone booth and she makes a phone call and she's talking to Eddie and he's telling her where to go. She gets out of the phone booth and she says, okay, to the guy, and then a guy gets into the phone booth, and the camera's on it for a really long time, and you're waiting for something to happen. That's Roger Corman.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
When I was watching it, I kept looking at that guy and being like, who is that?
Yeah.
He's not the only cool little cameo you get in this movie either.
No, you get some good cameos for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think Dick Miller steals the show when he comes up. But he always steals the show.
So she gets rescued by the cops after they shoot Eddie the Mangler in the booth. But obviously our heroine here, Karen White, played by Dee Wallace Stone, is traumatized.
Yeah.
It's having an adverse effect on her marriage. She's married to, his name's Bill in this, played by Christopher Stone, her husband in real life.
Yeah, and when they were looking for somebody to cast in the role, she just sort of casually suggested this actor that she had worked with in the past that she knew. She didn't say, this is my husband. I think they were a fiancé at the time, right? She didn't say, this is my fiancé. She just said, I know this guy. Here's his number. He came in red. They liked him. They hired him. And then when they called him to let him know that he had gotten the job, she answered the phone. And they were like, hey, wait a minute. And she was like, yeah.
That's all right. I approve of that message. Way to go.
Absolutely.
Make it happen.
So yeah, that's yet another Hollywood Minute. Brought to you by Monster Energy Drink. Because...
So obviously Karen is traumatized after this, and she has to take a little time away from the news station, during which the other reporters are trying to find out as much information as they can about this Eddie the Mangler, and takes them to a boarding house that they get let into a room, which... I mean, speaking of 12-year-old Mike McCarty, I took one look at this room and I was like, hey, this looks like 12-year-old Mike McCarty's room. All sorts of monster sketches on the wall and animal bones hanging from the ceiling. It just needed like a Iron Maiden Trooper poster. And
it really was missing an Iron Maiden Trooper poster. And the exploding head from Dawn of the Dead, fold out. Bob Burns is a production designer on The Howling, and he also did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you've got kind of a similar feel to like the house in Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the hanging bones and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And they find, amongst the other things in the room, they find some sketches and some landscape sketches, and they take them to the psychiatrist that you meet at the very beginning of the movie, played by Patrick McNee.
Yeah.
Patrick McNee from the Avengers.
Before you say that, did you notice the moment they walked into the room and you start seeing like the headlines splashed across the wall where he's been cutting out, clippings of his murders and stuff?
Yeah.
And one of the headlines read, "Death by Man-Eating Piranhas."
I didn't.
Yeah.
But nicely done, Joe Dante.
Yeah, well done, Joe Dante, who had just finished Piranha. That came out.
Sliding before. That in there.
Mm-hmm.
They take the sketches to Dr. Patrick McNee. What's his name? Dr. Wagner.
The original Avenger.
Yes. Yeah. Not affiliated with Marvel, but back from the old Avengers TV show back in the day, who was interviewed on the news early before about the beast in all of us. And it's right at the beginning of the movie, and it's one thing that, again, it's just a little uneven for me, this whole picture, but the movie opens up with like this audio mashup of a bunch of different people speaking and static and lines, and it drops...
You know what it reminded me of? Dawn of the Dead. It opens up the same way Dawn of the Dead does. Like Dawn of the Dead opens with news footage sounding stuff, and then you're live in the studio and you're cutting back and forth. There's a couple of tonal things in this movie. Later, some of the music by Pino Donaggio, who I believe is from the Chianti family, maybe? Is he?
Is he?
He's got a brother, I think. His name is...
Pistachio Donaggio?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He has a sister named Claret.
Yeah. There were twins, Claret and Chablis Donaggio, I think.
Yeah. Another brother named Merlot, who I believe lives in France.
Nice.
But anyway, the music by Pino Donaggio, which is actually really fucking cool. Like, I have sort of passed this movie off for many years as in, oh yeah, The Howling, I love it. But I don't actually watch it very often. And then I think the last time I saw it, I was probably in a shitty mood. And I went, this movie's not that great. And then as I'm watching it this time, I was like, okay, I'm getting more of the satire. I'm getting more of the tongue-in-cheek bits. The music is outstanding. It's 80s Italian. And the funny thing about Pino Donaggio, when they hired him to come do the score, they flew him out from Italy. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't speak English. Mm-hmm. And so they sat him down, and Roger Corman was there, and Dante was there, and Paul Bartel, the character actor, was there. Paul Bartel spoke Spanish, so they had Paul speak to Pino in Spanish and describe what they wanted. So they had like a second language conversation about what was needed for the film. They watched the film, then he flew back to Italy, scored it, and then mailed it to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
This has been another Hollywood Minute for the Howling.
It's amazing it turned out as well as it did then.
Yeah.
It is kind of great in that sort of 80s horror,
it totally
dread
is.
way.
There's only one moment I don't understand, and it's when they go on the hunt, the wolf hunt, and there's like circus music, and I'm like, what is this?
Well, you were talking about picking out the satire in this movie, and I don't know. I think I certainly find it sometimes, but for me, this movie is so uneven. And I don't want to step on any toes, because there's a lot to love about this movie. And we talked about the transformations, and honestly, for me, anytime You're going to watch a werewolf movie. I'm like, okay, how are they going to pull that off? What's that going to look like?
Yeah.
And this movie is A+. It's fantastic. It's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. But so many other bits of this movie just leave me scratching my head like, what the fuck is going on? Or like, why did they make choices like this?
There's some really dumb character choices.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, so she's traumatized. She's a news anchor, and she tries to go back onto the news, and she kind of freezes up. And the boss, Kevin McCarthy, is playing Fred Francis or something like that. He's such a good dickhead.
He's got a great dickhead line after she leaves.
I don't know, maybe she's pregnant. Give me.
He says, who knows, maybe she's crazy. Get in touch with that Fujimoto, or whatever the hell her name is, and get her ready for the 11 o'clock report.
Yeah.
And then you hear somebody else later go, you're our second favorite news reporter.
Right after
behind
the Oriental
that Asian girl.
They say Oriental girl.
Do they say it? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That was not the preferred nomenclature.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So she's traumatized. She can't go to work. And so she goes to see Patrick McNee, the psychiatrist, right? And he's like,
You know, what I think you need is a little bit of time away. Why don't you spend some time at the colony?
Yeah.
Well, what do you do there? Well, there's group therapy sessions and just time to get away from it all.
and I'm thinking, okay, well, so in my mind, Patrick McNee is inviting you to the colony, right? So
Sure.
maybe it's just the accent, but when someone's like, well, yes, Mike, why don't you visit my place in the Hamptons for a long weekend? It'll give you time to unwind. You're like, oh, shit, this sounds I better get my, boat shoes. Do I need a new pair of linen pants or something?
Yeah.
What's going on? So,
Do I need a sweater to tie around my neck?
so when you go to this place, you don't expect the cast of fucking Hee Haw to jump up behind the bush and be like, I hope you like the picking of the banjo.
Yeah.
Because
It gets pretty scary.
I don't know, is this the writing? Is this the casting? Patrick McNee being like,
Yes, come out to my place. We'll have a nice time. We'll drink some tea and talk about T.S. Eliot's Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
We'll read the works of Tolkien.
And I hope you like Foggy Mountain Breakdown.
And in the car, she says, what do you think they do there? And I'm thinking, bobbing for sheep's head? Maybe crystal insertion? Macrame classes?
not a lot of shaving or bathing going on.
No.
Is my guess. So she gets to the colony to unwind as the other reporters are looking for evidence of Eddie the Mangler, and she meets the people at the colony. And it's like an Appalachian folk band is there.
Yeah,
And,
it's jarring.
Motley bunch of people. Meshock Taylor is in the colony there, who would later he was in that movie Mannequin with Kim Cattrall.
Oh yeah,
He played Hollywood.
Famous character actor John Carradine, who'd done like 351 film and TV things over his
Holy
career. Come on,
shit.
fucking John Carradine. And he's like, hey, what a guy, I'm old.
And that was actually just a bonus take. That was just John talking to himself between takes.
He was just hammered. They had the camera rolling.
Could be.
Yeah. No, believe me, he was. And that's a Hollywood Minute.
I love how they've got everyone who, aside from the macrame shawls and stuff on the Appalachian folk band, everyone looks relatively normal in there, almost suburban, the woman with the permed hair is like, oh, I'll tell you all about the colony, and everyone looks all right. And then you meet Marsha.
Yeah. Hello, Marsha.
Cue wolf noise.
Yeah. Oh, Marsha. Yeah, that's right. My tongue is hanging out. My fucking heart is do through the shirt. My eyes are all buggy. I'm like, what the fuck? She's got one outfit through the entire show.
Well, why would you change?
Yeah, it's legit. It's like, hello, cleavage. Hello, costume jewelry with fucking bare teeth. It literally looks like you go to Spirit Halloween and you get the the white teeth, the big sharp white teeth and the beads, and it's like, oh yeah, that's my caveman necklace. She's got that on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a little bit Elvira, a little bit Native American shaman, just like Vampy McGoodtimes.
Yeah, Vampy McGoodtimes, that's good.
And so Karen's husband, Bill, they split up in the colony, and he goes to her, and she's like, hi. And he says, I'm looking for my wife. And she says, why?
Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
She is the kind of woman that I feel like if you met her with your wife at your side, your wife would just immediately stand in front of you.
Yeah, she's like,
hi, good to meet you.
She is a bitch.
I don't like her.
I mean, how do you know? She might be really nice. I mean, maybe she does a lot of charity work. She's got the tooth necklace, so obviously she's an artist.
Yeah, she smells like a red flag. Like right off the bat.
I love red flags, I'll be honest.
Yes.
Yeah, she set 12-year-old Mike McCarty off.
Yeah.
This movie was growth for me. Like you said, you went from 5 to 6.
I grew a little mustache as I was watching it. What is happening?
Daddy?
So Karen and Bill's time at the colony is not quite as restful as she thought. She's having some trouble sleeping. She's having nightmares, and they're just out of sync. Karen and Bill aren't having a love connection right now.
That's right.
But I mean, she was trapped in like a porno booth with a serial killer who was making her watch a rape snuff film. So, yeah, Bill, let's give her some time, okay?
Bill's a little insensitive.
Maybe not a moment to sneak up on your wife and give her a hard back massage.
Come on.
Yeah, and we'll see later in the movie, Bill does subscribe to the Sean Connery school of sometimes a woman just needs a good slap.
This movie is misogynistic as fuck.
Well, yeah. 1981.
Yeah. We apologize, everybody.
But also in the colony, we'll meet the sheriff. Slim Pickens is there. Oh, boy. How about that? Hey, can somebody get perhaps a shirt that's a size bigger for Slim?
Not so Slim Pickens. Yeah.
God, there's so much tension on that buttonhole. If one of those things were to fire off, it could go right through the car door.
I've got more ass than molass ass. Hell, she's hornier than a tent-pecker toad.
He does it at one point. He says something like, "This is a wolf hunt, not a coot show." And I immediately paused the movie and Googled coot show. I was like, what the fuck is that? Even Google didn't know. Even Google didn't know.
Slim Pickens just making up some shit on the fly.
Slim Pickens stumped Google is what I'm saying. We've got AI now. No idea.
I hear you folks got a coyote problem.
Yeah.
You know, when John Sayles wrote the dialogue for Slim Pickens, he knew that Slim had already been hired.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he wrote it with Slim in mind. So
okay, good stuff.
That tracks.
Good stuff, yeah. It does. It seemed natural coming right out of old Slim's mouth. Mm. And then, yes, as Karen and Bill are getting to know everyone in the colony, we flash back to our reporters, still trying to suss out the mysteries of Eddie Quist.
How do those reporters know so much more than the cops do? I mean, those cops look like fucking idiots, right? They're driving around in the car, and they're like, I think she's wearing some purple dress. Should be easy to find. And then Quick Draw McGraw is what that other cop calls him.
Yes.
Because he just draws down.
They do establish that the cops are pretty incompetent right from the beginning. They do.
Did I mention that I feel like the satirical notes in this film, as far as the news company goes, reminds me of the movie Network?
Oh, yeah. A little bit, for sure.
Yeah. That's what I mean about this movie having a lot of satire to it, as far as like the news company and what they're doing for ratings and, you know, the things they're putting her through for that. and the cops are idiots. I mean, come on.
I think the issue I have with it, though, is that the stuff that is disturbing is so disturbing that,
Sure.
like, the satire kind of falls a little flat for me a lot of the time. But yeah, the reporters are back at the morgue where you get, like, classic morgue shot. She's like, I don't know how you guys do this. And they flash over to like a crushed up brain in a pan right next to the guy's Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
smash burger or whatever the hell that is in there.
Totally. Messy sandwich and a fucking splattered brain. Yeah. Be careful.
I'm going to love that. I'm going to love that trope every time I see it. Anytime a
absolutely.
coroner is like got a fucking donut in there and they're eating.
There's another one in Wolfen, which we mentioned earlier.
Wolfen, there's one in Arachnophobia I can think of. There's
like
one
every fucking
in
movie.
Dead Alive. I think they do that as well.
Hollywood, don't ever stop doing that.
Nope, that's a good one.
Because that is a trope we want. But yeah, the morgue attendant is John Sayles, the writer.
No shit. Oh, cameos galore.
Yeah. And the very first script of this one was written by the producer. He wrote the first script really close to the book. The book is very different from the movie. The book is dark and traumatic. I mean, she's not a reporter. She's a housewife, and it's a home invasion.
Oh, really?
And it's
really?
fucked up. Yeah.
Wow,
it's
that
fucked
is
up.
crazy. That is
And,
crazy.
and she ends up getting pregnant from it and has a miscarriage.
Okay.
And it's like a whole fucking
All
bunch
right.
of crazy shit.
Okay, maybe
I'm sorry. Maybe I...
some changes were not so bad. How can we make this less creepy and offensive? I know. How about she sees a rape snuff film at the beginning? Yeah, I think that's the tonal shift that we need.
That's much better than a home invasion.
Where she gets pregnant and has a miscarriage. Good Christ.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, you know, when I was thinking about this movie, and as uneven as I keep saying it is, I did think there's a lot of really great story elements in here. I like the aspect of them being news reporters and tracking down the serial killer, and then the serial killer gets revealed to be part of this colony, as our reporters will find out soon, and, you know, the colony full of werewolves. There's a lot of great story beats. I almost wish that I could see this in like a mini-series type form.
I was totally thinking the same thing. I was thinking, get the rights...
Yeah.
Do a 6-episode one-off series. Do the Eddie Quist serial killer stuff. Do the lead up to it with the police tracking him and the news people tracking him.
Yeah.
By episode 2, you're into the werewolf world. And I think that would be a great fucking thing, you know?
And, you know, because it's a werewolf show, like, spend the money and make the werewolf transformation, like, awesome. Like you want it to be, and get good werewolves in there. The story has a lot of really cool elements to it. They don't always work for me in this movie, but it doesn't mean that they're not good. And I wouldn't be upset if they tried to remake this and even stretched it in, give it a more of a mini-series type treatment. I think that could be cool.
I agree, because this movie has had 6 sequels.
Oh, boy.
And all of them are just fucking garbage. Like, terrible.
Is it the second one has like the greatest movie subtitle of all time?
Your sister is a werewolf?
Yeah, The Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is better than Electric Boogaloo. That is better than 2 Shades of Blue. That is better than The Search for Curly's Gold. Your sister is a werewolf.
I mean, you really could add that to any film, couldn't you? Taxi Driver 2, Your sister is a werewolf.
So the reporters are on the trail. Oh, Eddie's escaped from the morgue. Somehow the body that was there before has disappeared.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get up and walk out on his own. Or did he?
Then what happened? Karen and Bill are still trying to work it out. You know, Bill has joined the hunting club at the colony. Karen's going through some real dubious therapy, getting pushed. Like, I understand that the doctor's like,
Yes, Karen, tell us, what do you see now? Look behind you, Karen. Can you see your attacker?
but then also the perm lady who was like,
Hush, all about the colony. She's like, yeah, what do you see? What do you see, Karen? What is it? What does he look like?
it's like, lady, what do you, when did you
This
become a
is not how
psychiatrist?
group therapy should work.
No, shut the fuck up, lady.
Because it's almost like he's trying to hypnotize her and to bring her back to that moment. And because she's forgotten, it's amnesia. She doesn't remember what happened. She just remembers going in the door, and that's it, I think, right?
Yeah, because she's so traumatized, she can't remember anything. But while they're doing that, then our reporters get to Dick Miller's bookstore.
Dick Miller's bookstore.
Oh, what a gold mine this place is.
Oh, hell yeah. Dick Miller is in every Joe Dante movie except one, I think, because he was unable to make it. But he's the king of cameos. For those of you who aren't sure who Dick Miller is, he was in Gremlins.
Driving the snowplow. He is the gun store guy in Terminator. Yeah, that's right.
The bookstore here, he's got some really great lines. And one of the characters in the bookstore, another cameo, Forrest Ackerman.
That's right.
And he's holding a copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine.
I would not have known that had I not heard Dana Gould talking about it on his podcast. And it was only the second time I watched The Howling where I saw him turn around and I saw the magazines in his hand. And I was like, wait a second. And then it triggered that memory. I was like, it's fucking Forrest J. Ackerman.
And it's Dick that gives us the lore, right?
Oh, yeah. He is there to tell us all about it. All about werewolves.
They regenerate, They're worse than cockroaches.
Worse than cockroaches.
Yeah.
You do wonder how Dick Miller became the owner of the occult bookstore and shop,
He says, I got chicken blood, I got dog embryos, I got wolf's bane, I got silver bullets.
Okay, what else the brakes there.
Yeah,
pump
what
the
else is
there.
at Dick's bookstore? What do you think he has in this shelf?
First of all, you have dog embryos?
Yeah, what is that for?
What the fuck? What recipe is that an ingredient of?
I understand the black candles and the wolf's bane.
Yeah, I'm down with bat wings. I have newt cat whiskers. That shit all makes sense.
Shroud of Turin replica.
Yeah, exactly. Shrunken heads, rabbit's feet. I got it.
Frog legs.
Dog embryos.
A Nazi swizzle stick.
Yeah. I got vintage photos of animals dressed like other animals. I got a cat dressed like a fish, fishing for a catfish dressed like a cat. You remember that gerbil that they pulled out of Richard Gere? I got that mummified in the back. You want to see it? I got it in a jar.
A jar of canned beets from the Depression.
I got sperm from a whale. Not a sperm whale, though. This one was tough to get.
An old Coke bottle with actual Coke in it. No, wait, Stephen King bought that.
This jar has Django Reinhardt's missing fingers in it. You gotta check this out.
Over there's the Necronomicon, but be careful.
Yeah, and he has like we talked about, the box of silver bullets for a 30-06. Somebody purchased them and then just never picked them up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know that those will be there for later in the movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that Joe Dante is going to put him in every movie, but I was like, this is the guy that runs this store? It's not some, like, goth chick with too many piercings? You didn't pick Stevie Nicks to...
Well, I mean, if the movie was made now, it is going to be the goth chick with the too many piercings.
Was it ever Dick Miller? Did Dick Miller or a Dick Miller-esque guy ever own a bookstore with all this stuff? It's like Forrest J. Ackerman and a couple of nuns.
The nuns come in. That was so good.
I hear you have hair from a chupacabra.
Right over here, ladies.
We heard there's a piece of the actual cross.
It's right next to the monkey's paw.
But don't break the fingers down.
Oh, fresh out of dog embryos. Sorry, ladies. Yeah, the dog embryos really was a needle scratch in the record.
That was a head turner for sure.
And then we come back to the colony where Bill, Karen's husband, is. He shot a rabbit. I thought you said he wasn't a hunter or something like that. He comes back with rabbits to TC, who is the other kind of feral guy there, and Marsha's brother. And he's got the rabbits, and he's walking up the road to the house, and he says, like, what do you do with these rabbits? And TC says, eat them. And Bill goes, oh, and looks surprised and disappointed. Like, what the fuck did you think they were going to do?
What was your plan?
Well, you just bore out the center of them and use them like slippers.
Well, this one you could use as a hat.
That's right.
You get them floppy ears come over the side of your face.
It's a boat, it's a hat, it's a pterodactyl.
Nice airplane reference.
Thank you. Leon is getting larger. But then he's like, take it to Marsha. She loves to cook. And I remember thinking, you know what? She seemed domestic.
Yeah.
I looked at her, I was like, yeah, in her low-cut black leather tunic and fucking tooth necklace. I thought, there is a woman that loves to cook.
Yeah. And how?
And he brings the bunnies to her, and she's just like, I'll cook them later, and instantly goes into succubus mode.
Yeah. Totally grabs him.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I can't do it. And leaves the house, only to be stalked by a wolf.
That's right.
The
And
werewolf
attacked.
gets him. Yeah. Bites him and then leaves.
Yeah.
See you later, Bill. But we know Bill's in trouble now because we understand the lore.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
But Karen calls the other reporters, says, oh, guess what? Bill was bitten. As they're watching The Wolfman on TV. There's a lot of that shit. Now, I do get the satire in that. Like, at one point, one of the reporters has a copy of, like, Allen Ginsberg's Howl on his
Well, at one point,
his
Slim
desk.
Pickens is eating a can of wolf chili.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things in the background like that.
But Bill's not in the mood now, and Karen falls asleep. But then that night, Bill creeps out of the room for a little fireside fuckery.
That's right. And 12-year-old Mike McCarty is, what?
Yeah. He's got that popcorn bucket planted firmly on his lap now.
Yes. Stop trying to cover my eyes, cool Aunt Mary Jane.
And knowing what you said about D. Wallace Stone was like, well, I have this actor I worked with. Maybe he'd like to be in the movie. And
good point.
And her husband gets it. You suppose she was on set that day? Or they're like, hey, D,
I don't know.
why don't you take the weekend off? And we're going to shoot Chris's scenes.
She is a very method actress and gets totally into the roles and has a hard time breaking out of the roles. So I think she had some very interesting times on set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Again, with the balance of this movie.
Yeah.
If you're going to have, like, silly fucking, I love this wolf chili going on, too, you don't need someone descending into the madness of trauma-induced amnesia.
Exactly.
But it was... Did you find it interesting at all that when Bill and Marsha get it on near the campfire, no doggy style? I really would have thought that that's just naturally the direction they would have went with it, but no.
Again, we get into the how does werewolf genitalia work? We're not exactly sure because they appear to be in a missionary style position, yet they seem to animate into dogs.
Is this the first movie with monsters fucking? Because
Jeez,
they
I
are
don't
like
know.
transforming while they're doing it, right? And they're getting all hairy and the teeth and the eyes and everything and howling
It's certainly
and
the first
scratching.
one I remember. I'm like, is this a job I can do in the future?
Well, check monstersfucking.com and see if it has it in the chronology.
This website is available. Should we purchase it?
But yeah, we're kind of getting this on the other side of a campfire, and then it eventually kind of morphs into like a secretive Nim cartoon of two dogs.
Yeah.
It's a little
Unfortunately,
weird.
that's a budgetary thing.
They do that and some stop motion werewolves near the end of this too, which they're just unusual additions to this movie.
They did do some stop motion sequences that they cut out because they just looked too jarring. It looked too Ray Harryhausen. Not that there was anything wrong with the way they were done. It just didn't match the rest of the film. But they did use the one moment in a dissolve towards the end with the three wolves sort of standing and howling at the moon. It's because they didn't have the money to build a full wolf suit. I mean, they did to a point, right? Rob Bottin created a head and hands for the attack scene of, is it Terry? Who's her friend?
I think so. The other reporter there.
For that attack scene, it was initially just a head and hands. And then they completed they put the movie together and they went to the studio and said, we can make this cooler. We can make a full werewolf. Give us more money. And they did. And then Rob built a full suit and then did leg inserts that you saw. You see the legs walking by themselves on the ground. So that's cool, right? And then
Very
had
cool.
the full shoulders and arms and did the rest of the suit without legs at that point. So it was like an upper version of the suit, maybe to the knees. and then insert legs for the thing. So they didn't have a full standing version of the wolf as it was, like the animation.
I love these werewolves.
Me too.
I do.
They're my favorite werewolves.
I mean, they're terrific. They're terrific. You know, you could, if you wanted to put the transformation scenes between this and American Werewolf next to each other, I'm going to go with American Werewolf in London on the transformation. But for the actual
final
werewolf
result
itself, it's, I think, head and shoulders, the werewolves and the Howling are. Those are the ones I want. The bipedal, 7-foot tall monsters.
Do we want to talk about the transformation now?
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
The transformation, obviously, Rob Bottin, he's 21 at the time, and the script just says, turns into a werewolf, and he's like, well, what do you guys want? And they said, we'll just make it cool. So he kind of had free reign to just sort of run with it and come up with stuff. And he had been working with Rick Baker, and Rick Baker was involved in the beginning and came up with a lot of the ideas. That's why these are so similar, American Werewolf and the Howling, the stretching of the jowls and the jaws.
Yeah.
And a lot of these scenes are very, very similar. It's because Rick Baker had originally come up with those ideas, and he left. Like, he was going to do the Howling with Rob Bottin. They were doing it. And then he left to go do American Werewolf because that movie had been on hold for such a long time. And Landis just kept saying, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Finally, all of a sudden, it happened. And Rick was like, I'm going to go. I got to go do this movie because I've been promising him that I would be involved. And so he left The Howling to go do American Werewolf. The Howling ended up coming out before American Werewolf. And that kind of stole the thunder of the cool transformation. So, not that there was much of a rift between them, but it was sort of like, it's a bummer that it was the ideas that I came up with that you did and then came out before the movie that I worked on. And Steve Johnson was one of the guys that worked on it too. You know, we've talked about him in past episodes. And it's almost like I talked to a friend of mine who worked for both for Rob Bottin and for Rick Baker at different times. And he said that some of those guys, they had worked with Rob on The Howling, and that was like practice for when they went to American Werewolf, a few months later, and did a lot of the same stuff, but was like, okay, here's the problems we had months ago on this, and this is how we can perfect it. So, yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, there's so many there's different mechanical heads in here. You know, there's the one with the crazy smile in it. It's a little like, huh? But it's great. Obviously, it's a lot of bladders under foam appliances that are getting the inflation.
It's maybe too many bladders on
a little
there.
too much. And some of them, if you're watching the scene closely, and like you say, it's like 3.5 minutes.
Oh, boy. Yeah, no kidding.
And if you're watching closely, there are moments that are accidents that sort of happen but look good. Like, a lot of the bladders were condoms, right? And so they're blowing up a condom, and it gets really big and then bursts, and then one below it is still blowing up. They just take a sound effect and put like a crack of a bone or something, and it looks more like it was supposed to be that way. Yeah. But I agree. The bladders go too far at one point, and they're a little wacky. But there's another, like, before this, when she cuts the arm off the werewolf.
Oh, there's great little bit.
Yeah. There's different variations. You've got the hand, which is one of the original things they made before they had more of a suit. Was like a hand. So you've got that clawing, and then you've got one that you're chopping off, and that's fake. And then you've got the hand that's buried in the ground, wearing the, part of the chopped off thing, and it's twitching and it's moving and it's got bladders on it, and the bladders blow up. And then when they deflate, they go to like an air version of the skin that sort of folds and deflates on itself. And I was like, that is fucking cool. And then it flips over and reinflates, and then it's a makeup on a regular guy's hand with a bladder on the palm. That's like 4 different things in that one little sequence. Nowadays, it would all be digital. But back then, it's just some fucking 21-year-old kid like, well, here's some really cool ideas. Let's try this.
Oh.
And it's great. And this movie is, this and The Thing, again, Rob Bottin, is what got me interested in wanting to do makeup effects. And what should still get people interested in wanting to do makeup effects today.
Yeah, they're absolutely wonderful sequences. I'd kind of forgotten about the hand bit until I watched it again this recent time. The reporter's getting chased out of the shack because Eddie's still alive. They're at the colony, and she jumps out the window. I don't know why she doesn't just run out the front door.
Yeah.
As he's bursting through the door, she's like, let me hurry up and unlock this window and jump out here. Like, fucking to keep moving out the front door.
Did you notice in that scene there's a photo on the wall that's young Lon Chaney Jr.?
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. You remember
very good.
There's a close-up of the
Very
tape
good.
deck with the werewolf claws going across it and hitting
Yes.
play, which is just kind of silly.
Yeah.
And right there is a large photograph of young Lon Chaney Jr.
I'll have to give it another look.
Absolutely. This has been a whole lot of Hollywood Minutes about the Howling.
Yeah, once it gets to this part of the movie, it is just like a rocket ship. Like all the weird colony stuff that has been happening before has just been building up. That once this reporter escapes the cabin and then Karen finds her dead in the hospital and Eddie has transformed into a wolf. It's also very Lou Ferrigno in these moments too, with like the tattered clothing getting torn as the muscles come from underneath.
With the bladders going way too big. Yeah. Another thing about that whole sequence is the very first time they were going to shoot this scene, Rob, who's a perfectionist, he's famously a perfectionist, was upstairs working on it, and while they're all downstairs waiting, and apparently took all day to the point where they ran out of time and couldn't shoot it. So he like applied it all once for practice. And they and because he just took, was like, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. And they just waited and waited. So they had the entire crew sitting around for a whole day and didn't shoot because the perfectionist needed to be perfect.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And yet they were still able to get enough money to build the whole wolf suit after that. The whole...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, the effects are fucking stellar, and I don't think anybody had ever seen any shit like this before, so... Yeah.
Well, like I said, those shots of more of the wolf, those were all reshoots. And they also, when we get to the end, that was a reshoot too.
It's good shit. But, D. Wallace Stone, Karen is in the hospital room or whatever as the wolf transforms again, and she just stands there for the whole, 8 minutes it takes to hard-boil an egg before he's done.
Yeah. She puts the egg timer on, turning around. She's checking her email. Although this was prior to email, so she was probably looking at the Columbia House record and tape collection, making her selections. Let's see, I want Fleetwood Mac. I'll take Bob Seger.
They came to the colony before the transformation was done, and then she had them for 30 days and forgot to cancel her subscription while the transformation is still going on, and ended up getting charged for it, and it's a whole mess.
All while the whole music still plays.
She throws the acid in his face, smoking werewolf.
Oh, poor bastard.
And she runs out. She's contacted the other... That's right, she finds her dead friend and she contacts the other reporter who's out there in his Mazda on his way to the colony to rescue her. But she gets taken by the colony and put in the barn as the other reporter comes in to rescue. And he's grabbed the silver bullets from Dick Miller's bookstore and has them in a rifle. He ends up shooting Eddie. Eddie, takes his gun and Eddie's like, give it your best shot. Yeah. Nice going, Eddie. Fucking... blows Eddie away, and then, nobody believes him when he comes into the barn to rescue Karen. He's like, get back. And they're like, bullets won't do you any good. And he just, shoots one guy. Boom, dead. Yeah. And then the other guy, played by Jimmy Murtaugh, who's an actor that I worked with one time. Nice guy. But he's
one that goes, silver bullets, my ass. And he's starting to transform when he says, my ass.
Yeah. But you just saw your friend get fucking blasted. What more proof do you need?
He's not TC? Are you getting up?
But D. Wallace Stone will get rescued, and they lock the werewolves in the barn and set it on fire, and they're all transforming and freaking out. And they're trying to make their way out of town, and Slim Pickens is taking shots at them. I'm also a werewolf. I
don't know if you noticed, I got more teeth than a coyote eating a pine cone.
The Coot Show.
This ain't a Coot Show.
But they have to take Slim Pickens' cop car. The werewolves are punching through the windows, and D. Wallace Stone, Karen gets bit, shoots a werewolf that ends up being her husband, and they rocket towards the end. We've got to let everybody know.
Yeah.
And good on you, girl. What a solution you've come up with. Like,
Yeah. Let's
I'm
go
gonna
live
on
on
the
the
news.
news.
And I'll
You
transform.
stand there with a gun.
Right.
Can you imagine? He walks into the news studio. He's got a gun. He's just kind of like, I'm just going to put this over here.
Yeah, what's that for?
I went hunting this weekend. Oh, okay. I'm having it cleaned.
Just set it there in the corner. It'll be fine. But then she transforms into the silliest looking werewolf I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She looks like a Yorkshire Terrier.
She does. I call it the Pekingese werewolf.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like one of the Wookiees from the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yes. And I understand that what the idea was. And again, this was a reshoot, and I believe this was shot the day before they printed the movie. So they shot it, edited it in, and printed the movie. Like, it was like
Holy
that
shit.
fucking fast. And they did a tight close-up because it was actually shot in Joe Dante's office. Just
Is that
her
why?
head. Yeah.
Okay. I wondered
And
why.
that's also why you see a tight close-up of the barrel of the gun.
Yeah. My gosh.
So the idea was, from what I understand, she has not been accepting of the gift, which is, what they've been referring to it, right, throughout the film.
Yeah.
They have all accepted the gift. They're like a feral version, like a more wolfy predator version.
Sure.
She is more of a prey type character. She plays prey throughout the entire movie. Marsha is a predator. She is prey. And that was the prey version of the werewolf, was the wimpy little Pekingese thing, which is just odd. I agree.
It is weird.
It doesn't fully track.
And
but
it's
it just
funny.
makes it funny. It is. It's funny.
And you cut to like the people around the country watching it on news, and the kids are like,
But the news lady's turning into a werewolf.
Yeah.
like, everybody's like, hey, come check this out. And they cut to the bar where they say the things they can do with special effects these days.
Exactly.
They get all
Things
meta
Rob
on it.
Bottin can do with special effects these days.
They get meta on it.
Totally.
And they pan over to they're like, and a hamburger for the miss. Like, how do you want that? And there's Marsha at the bar.
Rare.
Close up on hamburger sizzling.
Yeah.
And roll credits.
12-year-old Mike McCarty wants a Big Mac more than you can fucking say.
Oh my goodness, yeah. The special sauce has been unlocked. But to go from the beginning of this movie, which has the woman trapped in a porn booth watching a rape
Yeah, horrible.
to how do you want your hamburger? Rare. I'm not sure all the rungs were in that ladder for me in this movie.
Okay, all right.
It's like, what has happened?
So what are we going to rate it with?
It could be scratch marks. It could be
Full moons?
how many full moons? How many minutes does it take to transform?
Let's go with transformation minutes. How many minutes does it take for you to transform?
You've said it in the past about movies. If you're judging it on certain criteria, this is a 9. This is a 9.5. This movie is so good in certain ways, but it really is unsteady. And the journey this movie takes is real choppy for me. Again,
So your transformation is a little less.
It is.
Then. Okay.
It is. I'm going to speed through it a little bit. I would love to see this as a miniseries.
Yeah,
I would. I think it could
me
be
too.
awesome, especially if they really did some great practical effects to see what we can do 40 years later. But I'm going to give this one a 7.
Okay.
It's not even gaps in the story. It's just unevenness in the storytelling in this movie that, the technical stuff I love. The storytelling I don't. So 7.
Okay. 12-year-old Mike McCarty gives this 12 out of 10. He gives it 12 Marsha cleavage shots out of 10.
12 scratch marks on the back.
Yeah. And adult Mike McCarty thinks this is an 8.5. And it's partially for nostalgia reasons. It's partially because I think it's just well put together. The transformation is great. The acting, the characters are fun. The dialogue is fun and at times kooky. I think it's an enjoyable film. It's more enjoyable than I remember the last time I saw it. So 8.5 for me.
8.5-minute transformation. Which
Yeah.
is pretty close to what it is in the movie, I think. Listen, they had some new toys, and they were proud of it, so I don't fault them at all for being like, we're just going to stretch this on forever. And I think audiences, especially in the day, were like, yeah, I could watch this forever.
Is that woman going to do the same thing? I'm curious.
Well, shall we head to the lobby? And,
let's head to the lobby, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about Wolf.
Man. Let's
see you in a minute.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the Levi to get ourselves a treat.
I feel like they need to delve more into the performance of Hollywood's most underrated actress, Dee Wallace. Because I think that she would look good with it. With a dog collar on. Perhaps with the in the cat costume from E.T. Oh, the irony. I could get a wax figure made and put the collar on. And put her in the leopard pose, but she's actually a werewolf. I could put her in my basement and encase her in a giant block of crystal clear lucite acrylic.
Ah, crap. Tyler's turning into a werewolf again.
Don't kink shame him.
You're right. My bad. Fucking Tyler. Is it Dee or Marsha for you?
It's just Marsha, in the words of Jan Brady. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I do indeed. 12-year-old Mike McCarty gets it. It's on the nose for sure.
Yeah. And we didn't talk about it, but I do remember, I think it was my 13th birthday party. I had a sleepover at my house, and Mom was like, what movies do you want to watch? And we watched Child's Play and The Howling. Those are the two ones.
Hell yes.
And everybody was like, I've never seen The Howling. And I was like, I haven't seen it since I was a little boy. And we were all like,
You're 12-year-old.
Yeah.
You're saying, I haven't seen it since I was a little boy. I'm a man now. Now I know who Marsha is.
we all were after that night.
Did you play D&D too? Because that would have been the trifecta. Pizza, D&D, The Howling. Bunch of 12-year-olds turning 13.
Stop. You're going to make me want to stop the recording right now. It's like, let's make this night happen.
I must go back in time.
We're not here to talk about The Howling. We're here to talk about Wolf, man.
Why don't you tell me about Wolf? Man.
Wolf, man. 2024, directed by Leigh Whannel. Leigh Whannel, who we were just talking about a couple weeks ago in our Saw episode.
Mm-hmm.
And who also brought us The Invisible Man a couple of years ago. So,
which was good.
Second foray into some classic monsters with Wolf,
Blumhouse,
Man, Full Moons, Silver Bullets, The Sign of the Pentagram. Even the man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon shines bright. If you're familiar with werewolf lore at all, then those tropes seem familiar. Enter Australian director Leigh Whannel, who decided, yeah, fuck all that noise, I'm going to do something completely different. Moving away from any semblance of the original Universal story, or pretty much any werewolf story for that matter, we are taken on a journey with Blake, played by Christopher Abbott, a middle-aged dude with a daughter, rocky marriage, and plenty of daddy issues. When Blake gets word that the family farm has come into his hands, he takes his wife and daughter to the country in an effort to rekindle his marriage and get his family back on track. Unfortunately for this family, they don't even make it through the front door before a mysterious attacker bites Blake and changes him in ways that he never saw coming. Wolf Man explores themes of fathers and sons, families, and toxic masculinity while giving us plenty of camera tricks, clever sound editing, and body horror along the way. Some of these things shine bright in the moonlight, while others might leave some audience members howling in dismay. Wolf Man. Mike, what did you think, man?
Well, we just talked about The Howling, one of my favorite werewolf movies of all time. Mm-hmm. I also love Dog Soldiers. I also love American Werewolf.
Sure, goes without saying.
I enjoy the movie Wolf.
Okay, yeah. With the Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Mike Nichols film. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I dig the original Wolf Man, you know?
the original Wolf Man is pretty
it's
great.
the Wolf Man. Mm-hmm. Let's not get him confused.
You're right.
Let's not get him confused.
There is no space between.
No, there is not.
There is too much space in this one.
Oh.
I will say, when I first watched both movies, the first thing that came to my head is a little jingle. One of these films is not like the other. One of these films is a pile of shit. And we know I love The Howling.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this movie.
Me neither.
No. That's upsetting because I really hoped you were going to like it.
No, I couldn't. We talked at the top of this episode about how much we both like werewolves and the idea of werewolves, and we obviously both enjoy that lore. And, you know, I guess points for trying here. I'll give you a tip of the hat because I've seen an interview with him and he's like, well, I thought about everything that I've seen in the werewolf movie and I decided I wanted to do absolutely none of that and try something new. And okay, so that's a big risk. You're really risking a lot.
Absolutely.
However, you know, the Universal logo comes up and you get Wolfman and it has nothing to do with that story and it has nothing to do with any of the lore, really, of werewolves. I mean, maybe like a smidgen. And for those reasons...
There's not even a shot of the moon.
It was a really disappointing film. And I know he was trying to... It seemed like he was trying to address some larger issues, and it just fell flat for me. It all fell flat for me, and I wasn't thrilled with the performances in this movie.
No, I think there is no chemistry with this entire family. The closest they get to chemistry is the dad
and the daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, with the whole, you're reading my mind, putting your hand on my
I'm a tremendously soft target for that, too, having a young daughter myself. So, of course, I tune into that. But that could not pull this movie out for me. And Julia Garner, who I think is a fantastic actress. I mean,
always
Ozark?
Good.
Are you fucking kidding me? She's so great in Ozark. And she made me feel supremely uncomfortable in The Americans, which is the first place that I saw her.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot she's in that show, and she's got such a great character. That's a great show.
Oh,
that's
God.
a really good show.
Wonderful, wonderful show. One of my favorites, actually. Yeah. But she does not wear the mantle of a young mother well, at least not yet.
No,
you know,
she almost seems too young.
She does seem to. I mean, I don't know. Biologically, I'm sure it is possible, but she seems too young. She seems too...
But I also feel she's made her money playing characters that are young.
Yeah.
You know, like the Ozark character is a young girl. Obviously, the Americans, she was like a teenager, right?
Yeah.
So we're used to seeing her as a young girl, and to see her playing a mother, it's a little jarring. Now, I haven't seen Apartment 7A, which is the prequel to Rosemary's Baby, where she plays the Rosemary character, or whatever the character's name is.
I mean, that I could probably believe, honestly, because she does look, I mean, you know, Mia Farrow was a tiny little ethereal... pretty much teenager in the original movie of that too.
Yeah,
so.
True.
But yeah, this one, and like I said, she's obviously a very good actress, but yeah, not a lot of chemistry. Role didn't sit well. Just kind of all fell flat.
Yeah, I agree. We have much less to talk about this show.
Well, I mean, let's talk about what's good, because there are some good effects in there. There is some like pretty gruesome body horror type stuff that happens in this. There's some neat camera tricks that get pulled in this.
Absolutely. I will give it that for sure.
You know, without spoiling anything, Leigh Whannel was paying a lot of attention to the senses and the sensory aspects of this movie.
Yeah, of making a transformation.
Yeah, you see the transformation not just from the outside in, but also from the inside out.
Speaking of transformations, his takes 8 hours.
Yes. Yes, his takes much, much longer.
Yeah.
In this one, that is true.
Which I also don't care for. Show it to me in a matter of minutes. Let's not stretch it out over the entire night as you slowly get weirder and weirder.
I mean, like he was saying, he tried to do something that had never been done before. And he was really trying to turn all of those tropes that we know on their head. And for me, the end result was it wasn't the kind of movie I wanted it to be.
No, and let's face it, he did a similar thing with The Invisible Man. That movie is not very much like the original Invisible Man, but that is a really good take on The Invisible Man.
It is. And that one had, I mean, Elizabeth Moss is pretty tremendous in that one.
She's great.
I can't remember the name of the guy that plays her husband, but that one being about domestic abuse and the specter of domestic abuse and always feeling paranoid, like what could be around the corner, was a really good fit. And maybe it's because I'm not as attached to the story of the Invisible Man as I am to the Wolf Man. I said it in the beginning, at least when I am going to watch a werewolf movie, I'm always like, when am I going to see the transformation? How is that going to happen? I'm looking forward to that right from the beginning. And will I see it more than once? You know? Are they going to give me some different angles of this or different approaches to this? And this one is very much like, and I know it was a movie we discussed pairing with this, but it's much more like The Fly in terms of his transformation.
Yeah. Tyler had initially texted me and suggested The Fly. And the reason was because it's totally more like The Fly.
Yeah.
After you watched it, you said, let's keep it. And I said, okay.
Yeah, I mean, by title, they are both, werewolf movies. And I'd already watched The Howling, and I thought some of that stuff was funny in ways that perhaps were not intended. And I thought we might have more fun talking about that stuff.
Yeah. The Fly's going to have its own show someday.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a wonderful film. But this one, the larger issues he's trying to grapple with fall flat. The risks that he has taken don't always succeed. And in the end, I'm not a fan. I did not enjoy this movie.
Yeah. The makeup effects work is good. It's executed well. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the design, but again, that's not necessarily on the artist. That could be just the direction they were sent in. Arjen Tuiten, he's got his own shop here in LA, in the Valley, and does some really great work. He was nominated for an Oscar back in 2017 for that movie Wonder, which had a cool makeup on a kid with some really subtle mechanics, moving the eyes, and some things like that. It was really, really good. He's a super tremendous artist, and I know a lot of people that have worked for him. And a lot of people were busy on this show because there's so many different stages of the transformation.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's such a slow build over time, there's a lot of work and a lot of hair work. I mean, he hired every fucking hair person in the business for like probably a month or 2 months straight of just doing hair stuff.
Wow.
And it's good, solid, well-executed work. I'm just not a fan of the design.
Yeah. There are things that can definitely be commended about this movie. And I do think some of the inside-out aspects of the transformation, I was like, okay, that's cool. I don't know that I've necessarily seen that in a werewolf movie before. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a stretch, I think, to call this a werewolf movie. Despite the fact that it's called Wolf. Man.
Yeah.
How do we want to rate this?
Waning Moons.
Waning Moons is almost that. Yes. How many waning moons do you give Wolf Man?
You know how much longer this episode's going to be every time we say Wolf Man?
It's like Christopher Walken giving the review.
I don't know.
Man.
I was thinking, as I was watching the film, family trauma, and I'm thinking, as I'm watching it, how come there's no shot of the moon in the entire film? And then
There is one on the poster.
it doesn't track. It doesn't track for me.
No.
I'm giving Wolf Man 4 waning moons.
I also, four waning moons from me
Wow.
as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I...
All right, we're done. Thanks for listening to this episode. Tune in next week.
Let's talk about the Howling again. We've got at least another 45 minutes we could talk about the Howling.
We could talk more about the transformation. We could talk more about other werewolf movies we like.
No, let's get into this one. We'll take another quick little break here.
Yeah.
And then we'll break down Wolf
Man.
Here's a food delicacy you'll surely enjoy. It's new, it's different. Hot Italian meatball sandwich. Just like Mama made. You'll find them freshly made in a crisp Italian roll at our refreshment stand.
Show starts in 1 minute.
All right. And we are back to talk about Wolf
Man. Okay, the opening shot of this movie is a wasp being overrun with ants. So tell me, Mike, why the fuck is the opening shot of this movie a wasp being overrun with ants?
It's about
What?
predators.
What?
And prey.
What?
And
No. I
What? No.
Yes, Mark Wahlberg. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting open shot. It's like a super close-up of a wasp, and there's ants all around it. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. What's that got to do with this movie? And then I forgot about it. And so the second time I watched it, I'm like, yes, what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
Yeah. I wish I remember what the director said, because I did listen to the commentary the second time I watched the movie, because I didn't like the movie. So I'm like, well, let me see if listening to the commentary, I go, oh, okay. No, I do like this more.
Yeah, is something going to connect the dots for you?
Yeah. I'll be honest. Yesterday I was on set all day. I came home, and I came home to dog diarrhea on the floor. And I had to spend 30 minutes cleaning up dog diarrhea off of rugs. Now, I would rather do that than watch Wolf Man a third time.
Yeah. Well, at least when you got done cleaning the dog diarrhea, you felt like you got something accomplished.
I did get something accomplished. But yeah, I watched it with the commentary, and there's a couple of things I gleaned off of it. And obviously, Leigh Whannel, he wrote this with his wife.
Yep.
So they, they got to work on it together. That's cool. It was shot in New Zealand. That's cool.
Oh, is that where it was shot? It's beautiful.
Yeah, some of the stuff.
Beautiful.
Like the farmhouse, the exterior farmhouse that was built, because there were no farmhouses that looked like that in New Zealand. So they spent some money. They did some stuff. The makeup effects are well executed. And there's a really great puppet at one point. There is a transformation. And you don't know that it's a puppet because it's so fucking good.
Yeah,
and there's also a thing
idea.
that looks digital. That's like a hand with the bones moving underneath it. That's not digital. That's also a puppet.
That's a cool effect. That's a cool effect.
So all that shit is good. But movie, no good.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm not always the brightest person in the audience. I don't always get the reference or understand the connection. But I have to tell you, the second time I watched this and I saw the wasp being overrun with ants, I was like, that never comes up again. What the fuck does this have to do with anything? And then it goes from that to a little bit of a prologue, right? That says in the 90s, well, there's no narration, but it essentially says in the 90s, a hiker went missing and locals saying he got sick with this animal fever. The Native Americans who used to be on this land call it the face of the wolf.
Yeah. That's what they should have named this movie.
Don't call it Wolfman. Seriously, Face of the Wolf would have been a much better title for this, because this has nothing to do with the Wolfman or werewolves, because that's the way he wrote it. The only thing that is that he gets scratched and then he has the curse, essentially, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only trope that they accept from the history and lore of werewolves. And like you say, you and I are big fans of werewolves. I wrote a werewolf novel. To those of you out there who don't know, yes, there is a novel. It's currently out of print, written by me, and it's Romulus and Remus as the first werewolves. Shameless plug.
That's all right. Listen, it's out of print, but I happen to have a copy that I'll sell you for a tidy sum. Just send us an email to thewholedamnthing13 at gmail.com.
I might have a signed one, too. We might have to auction that off. But, yeah, I was just going to say, werewolves, I've always loved them so much so I wrote a novel about it. I'm writing a sequel to the novel. I'm looking to sell that novel to a bigger publisher. I have an agent that's working on it because it was at a small press for a while. And then in order to get it to a bigger press, we would have to pull it from the small press. So that's why it's currently unavailable. But if there is any kind of an issue, I'm going to sell it to another small press and then it will be out there. So that will be coming out again in the very near future. But again, that's why I fucking love werewolves. I love werewolves. So this, totally not a werewolf movie. If you're not that big of a fan of werewolves, you might watch this and go, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. That movie was great.
I suppose that's a very good point.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe I'm speaking through like a filter of disappointment in having an expectation for something. And then, like I said, he purposefully subverted those expectations. He really went out of his way to do it. I mean, as a filmmaker, he's not a bad filmmaker. This is a beautiful movie, beautifully shot. There's some great camera work and stuff. And like when this starts, we've got this shot of this farm, and it establishes some things really quickly. You see a generator, you see a greenhouse, you see a chicken coop, and immediately you're like, oh, these people, whoever these people are, live off the grid. Right? Yeah. They've got their own power. They're growing their own vegetables. They've got their own livestock and stuff. There's a barn there, and there's a security camera outside, and there's a fence with it says nothing on this farm is worth dying for or whatever, and it's got a picture of a gun on it. So okay, so they live off the grid. They're maybe a little bit paranoid. A secure house. Who are these people? So he's establishing some things right from the beginning that had me hooked. Like, oh, show me more.
Sure.
A young boy gets woke up out of bed. You hear his father say 10 hut from downstairs. Okay, this is a military sort of run household.
Sure.
The kid's eating his breakfast, scratching his dog behind the ears as his dad comes in. Grab your rifle, we're heading out at 0700 hours. You're like, okay, so they're hunting, and this is some sort of veteran here or something who lives off the grid.
Yeah, he's like a Vietnam vet. I mean, I think that's apparent when you see one of the flags hanging in the basement, which is like the flag from his squad.
And he goes out with his kid, and he's trying to teach his kid about the land, stay away from these mushrooms. You're not listening to me, boy. And he gets in his face like, you always got your head in the clouds. I'm trying to teach you to survive. He's sort of yelling at his kid.
Get that Game Boy out of your pocket. It's probably the time of Game Boy, right?
Yeah, I think it's in the 90s, right?
Tamagotchi, what? 10 hut, soldier.
He goes downstairs, catches his dad playing Tetris late at night. I knew it.
Don't look at me, boy.
Get to bed.
But they see a deer out there. Okay. They got the deer in their sights, and the kid sort of scampers away to get a better angle on it without telling his dad. And then his dad turns around and freaks out. Where's his boy? Boy can't find the deer. He's looking through the scope. He's out there in the woods by himself, and he sees this figure out there in the scope. You can't really see what it is. The details are kind of fuzzy.
Is it wolf? Man?
Could be. But then all of a sudden, his dad is like, I love the fact that the kid's in the middle of the forest. Mm-hmm. He's seen something through a scope. He's looking around, and like his dad all of a sudden just is like right on top of him, like behind him, jump scare.
Yeah.
Like, what I'll tell you, boy, you're not supposed to get out of here. I'm trying to teach you to survive. And I felt like they're trying to establish, like, his dad is obviously a hard man, and we get some PTSD flavor from his dad too, because he's like, you could die in the blink of an eye. It only takes a minute, and then you're gone, and all this stuff. Mom is nowhere in sight. This guy.
So many
obviously has
men
some
died
problems.
face down in the mud, villages like Quezon.
That's right. You get a little bit of that, but part of me thinks that this movie is trying to like teach us to not become the monsters that our parents are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the father passing on the abuse to the son, and he's trying to be a better parent than his father was. But I was like, all that guy did is yell at his boy.
Yeah.
He didn't smack him. He didn't push him around. He didn't do any shit like that.
Well, that's all you got to do these days.
I guess.
Yeah. You're not allowed to smack them.
Honestly, to me, it just kind of felt a little flaccid. I was like, I didn't look like no abuse to me.
That looked like clean living.
You're just not listening, kid.
Yeah. Just get the fucking potatoes out of your ears.
So he's yelling at his kid, and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if it's a howl they hear, but there's a problem. Like,
I don't know. Was there even a howl in this movie? Maybe there was.
There's some growls and some howls and some snarls and whatnot. But they
trope
get up
number
in that,
2.
Get up in that deer blind, boy. And they scamper up in the deer blind, and they hear this thing. And it's climbing up the ladder to the deer blind, and you kind of see the steam coming from just underneath the wall.
I mean, I'm still on board for this movie at that point.
Me too. Mm-hmm. Me too. Everything is cool. It's well shot. There's some tension. Mm-hmm. What is this? What's going on? You hear the elk snort or call in the background, and this thing jumps down. You never see it. And then the dad gets up, and through his scope, he sees like, oh, that elk in the distance has been slaughtered, and something darts behind the trees.
Yeah.
And then that night, his dad's on a CB radio talking to somebody else. And he's like, hey, I saw the thing. You see his dad has this notebook with all this stuff about this creature out there. All these notes. I saw it. And he's talking to the guy's like, you saw what? That hiker, that disappeared? Yeah. And he says something like, don't you want to make this place safe for your boy? He's talking to the other guy. And it really got me thinking, like, oh, what is this? There's some sort of, like, number one, why are these people living off the grid? Number two, what is this sort of legend that they're chasing here? Number three, who is this other person? Is this, like, an old, like, platoon or something that have, come out to find their, was the hiker, like, part of their, military platoon?
Like John Rambo and his old mates?
Yeah, and they're
found
like,
a place to live in the
you know what, this guy saved our
woods.
life, and now he's living like this crazy thing, and we got to put him down. Like, all of these different possibilities are going through my mind, and we will get answers to none of that shit.
None of them.
None of it. All just kind of falls flat, and we disregard it all after this moment. The
this
boy
notebook
comes down.
Goes to Dick Miller's bookshop. Is never seen again.
No, not at all. Right, there's just a jar full of dog embryos right on top of it, and no one
There's some
touches
chicken
them.
blood.
That's right.
There's some rabbit's feet.
Yeah, some box full of cat whiskers, and that's it. Yeah. I mean, the interesting parts of the story, or the interesting ways that I thought it could have gone, just we get no payoff from all of this, really. Because we cut to 30 years later. Here's our boy. Good casting of the little boy, and then Christopher Abbott, who plays Blake as a grown-up, as an adult.
Sure.
And he's with his daughter, and they're walking through New York or something, and she's walking on a thick railing between the street and the sidewalk. And he's like, get down. And she kind of doesn't get down, and then when she finally does, she bumps into like a hobo who screams at her.
Yeah.
And then her dad is like, I told you to get down. And he's yelling at her, right? Mm-hmm. And again, it was like, This ain't abuse. You told your daughter to get down. She didn't. And then when she did, she bumped into some crazy homeless guy who fucking screamed in her face. So, yeah, you're going to get mad. I was like, whatever's happening here is not abuse.
Open your eyes.
Yeah. This is not a pattern of abuse. This is a stern warning. Like, you got to pay attention or you're going to get hurt, kid.
Absolutely. And then they do the whole daddy-daughter thing with the, read my mind, what am I thinking?
It's good. Now, that little bit, I will say, they'll come back to that throughout the movie.
That's a nice circle throughout the character arc to the end, for sure.
It is. And as he will undergo his transformation throughout the movie, sometimes she's able to kind of soothe him back a little by connecting with him.
Although it's a little, at times they make him appear like he has lost the ability to understand what they are saying or doing, and then he has regained the ability for one scene.
Well, I think specifically in that case, it's because she gets through to him through the very method that we're talking right now. Okay. She puts her hand on his forehead and says, like, can you read my mind? And the thing is, they always say the same thing to each other in that moment. Like, don't you know how much I love you, or something akin to that.
Yeah. What's my job? To protect, essentially. To protect his daughter. That is his job. That's it. That is what the mind reading part. So then we find out that they have some marriage troubles. We see that him and his young wife are not really on great ground. And then he says, my father, they finally decided to declare him dead. And I'm thinking, okay, it takes months and months and months before someone is declared dead if they're missing, right? Maybe 6 months, maybe a year. I don't know. I mean, there's a really long time frame from when you go missing to when they declare we are not going to look for you anymore, and you are absolutely dead. Yeah. So it just led me to believe this has been a really long time frame that his dad has been gone. And then he's like, okay, let's go out to the family farm. Let's reconnect. Let's go out there and find it.
It is one of the strong moments in the script where they're sitting around at dinner at that time, and he says, I just found this out. I got the papers and the keys to the house. And he's like, we knew this was a long time coming. He's not breaking down and crying. He's like, we all saw this was coming. This just makes it final. And his daughter is like, are you sad? And he's like, yeah, I am sad because I never really thought I wanted to talk to him that much. We fell out of touch. I didn't really ever want to talk to him. And now I do want to talk to him, and he's gone. I'll never get a chance again. I was like, well, it was a very human moment right there.
Yeah, he yelled at me a couple of times. He wouldn't allow me to have a Tamagotchi.
That's right. He took away my Game Boy. I can't play Tetris anymore without busting into tears. I had a collection of dog embryos. He didn't like that. He sold them to Dick Miller.
So they're going to go out to the family farm and reconnect. And they're driving like a Ryder truck. I guess they're going for a long time.
Well, he's got to take all the stuff and get out of there.
So they're going to go pack it all up. And they kind of get a little lost in the woods. Yeah. And come across another character.
Yeah, turns out it was the aforementioned boy when his father was having that CB radio talk. Don't you want to make this place safe for your boy? It's that guy. He's Blake's age. He says, Blake, you haven't been here in years.
Yeah.
It's like, Derek. Yeah. And they're reacting to Derek. I mean, maybe not Blake, but his daughter and his wife are reacting to Derek like he is this scary fucking scumbag.
He's got a gun.
He's got a rifle, but he looks, he's just like a regular looking dude.
Yeah.
He's not the most intimidating guy, you know?
He comes off a little strange, a little like, who are you and why are you here? Oh, you're so-and-so's boy. Well, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And he comes off very standoffish.
Yeah.
But then immediately is slightly less standoffish, like, I'll show you where to go.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the wife and the daughter, and this is something I gleaned from the director's commentary, are always made to look like prey in this movie. The daughter is always wearing cute little animal print outfits, like
that's true.
An animal thing. It's like a onesie with ears.
Yeah.
So she looks like a cute little animal that is going to be, prey to whatever this is out there. And the wife is very similar. So I thought that was interesting. It's something that I didn't pick up when I first watched it, but picked up with the director saying, that's why I made these choices. He also said there's a lot of animal references throughout the entire thing that you're going to see. And, I was always trying to keep that in mind, keep this movie animalistic and like animals in the background, animals over here, animals on the prints, animals on the shirt, so on and so forth. But anyway, he gets in the car and he's a little weird and he asks what she does.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of shocked. Does he chuckle? I don't even remember. I chuckled.
I got the impression because Blake said, well, I'm a writer, but I'm between jobs right now. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, okay. And then she just pipes up, I'm a journalist. She has a job. And to me, that moment was like, this guy was like, oh, woman is the breadwinner, huh? Well, isn't this a funny topsy-turvy world?
Fake news, huh?
Yeah. Could have been a little of that.
Yeah.
Although if you're living this far off the grid, like...
Yeah. You're not watching
Lord.
any news at that point.
Which, you know what? The points for off the grid.
Hell yeah. I'm in it. I'm in it to win it off the grid, for sure.
But they're soon to swerve off the road because a figure is suddenly in the middle of the road as they're
Jump
driving.
scare.
Oh my gosh, they pull off. The truck tips on its side. It slides kind of off a cliff, and it's held there, suspended in the air by some branches.
Yeah, it's kind of rolling a little bit, and that whole shot was all done digitally. Most of this movie was shot practically. There's not a ton of digital effects, but that entire sequence with the truck rolling was all digital. It doesn't necessarily look digital.
Derek will fall out. He hits the ground. Boom. I don't know, 15 feet below or something. Oh.
Yeah.
And then the girls will scramble
Jurassic
to the top
Park
of the truck.
Jeep moment.
It is very, very Jurassic Parky in there.
Yeah.
Of course. I think everybody who sees it can make that connection would do so.
Sure.
And Blake is trying to close the door where Derek fell out of and get out of the truck when this beast, this wolf man. I don't know, scales the side of the truck and scratches him on his arm.
Yeah, whatever it's doing, I'm a little confused as to where they are in space.
Yeah. Is it like Spider-Man climbing on the underside of the truck as it's suspended over this kind of gorge? Oh, is it going along a tree that I'm with you. I'm not exactly sure how it gets to him, but it does. And then you don't really see it, but it leaps down to the ground and takes Derek's body off. Huh?
Yep.
So long, Derek.
Yeah.
Thanks for the directions.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Blake says, I know where we're at. The house isn't that far away. Run. We got to run. And they
Suddenly
run.
he knows where he's at.
Yeah, they run. They're running through the field. There's the house. Get there, pulling out the keys. And
yeah, something's chasing them.
Behind them.
No.
Oh,
Exactly.
yes, Mark Wahlberg. Scrambling with the keys, open the doors, inside, close the door, lock the door. Something's trying to get him. And
I'm still on board.
Yeah, I am too. But I think this is probably the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, I'm starting to think about checking my email.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if anyone's texted me in the last 30 minutes that I've been watching this movie. Because this is probably about 30-ish minutes, right?
Yeah. And, as much as he's like, I got to protect my family, they get into this place and, it's a big old farmhouse. It's a big open farmhouse.
Sure.
There's windows all around. There's this thing stalking him outside. And he's like, wait right here. I'm going to go down the basement. I was like, wait right here? Fuck that. Everybody stick together.
Yeah.
Let's go in the basement together. I don't want anyone hanging out by themselves. I'm certainly not going to leave my wife and my child behind.
Yeah.
He leaves them there and goes in the basement and finds the switch to light the generator and turn the power on and this entire complex.
This is the first moment I throw bullshit. And it's like, I got a generator, and I know that if I let that thing sit for 6 months, it does not start. And I'm thinking, how long has Dad been missing? Because everything is not really in such it almost looks like Dad's been gone. In some parts of the house, it looks like Dad's been gone 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks and declared dead. And in other parts of the house and outside, it seems like Dad's been gone a year.
Yeah, there are a couple of other mechanical issues in here that you just got to kind of wave your hands by.
Yeah.
But the movie doesn't earn it enough for me to actually cut it any slack.
Yeah.
Later on, there's a scene where she will try to escape the house, and there's a pickup truck out there. And she has the keys to the truck, and she just grabs a battery and runs out there, too. It's like, how did you know?
Like, that's going to do it.
But it's like, I guess that's good thinking. Like, the battery might be dead. It might need to jump this thing, and I'll take this out there. But they hadn't been to the truck. They didn't know. She didn't strike me as the kind of gal that was like, you know what? I bet that truck is going to need a jump, so I should take this battery with me on there.
Yeah, she is not the girl from Ozark who would have done that.
No, exactly right.
She's a journalist.
New York City.
Get a rope.
Yeah, she gets her salsa from New York City.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing isn't crashing through the windows anymore, so they're trying to reach people on the ham radio. And already he starts to change because he's like, what's that? What's that smell?
Yeah.
He like opens a locker, and it's like a meat locker with some haunches just hanging from there. Like, how long's Dad been gone?
Yeah.
How long
this is one of the first moments or second moments where I'm like, I don't understand how long Dad's been gone because that looks fresh.
And he pulls out a little thing. He's like, I found some of my dad's jerky. And just pops it into his mouth.
I think some of that was at Dick Miller's place too.
Yeah. Well, the Ronco food dehydrator had been working overtime. And that's when he's like, oh shit, ow. And one of his teeth comes out. Like, oh, that's some hard-ass jerky you got there.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the beginning of the slow descent into body horror that we will get throughout this movie as he...
Yeah, this is the nod to The Fly. And, the director admitted it as well. But it's the first thing I thought. It's the moment I went, Tyler was right. This movie should be paired with The Fly.
Yeah. And his arm is gross. His wife...
Yeah, where he got scratched.
She puts a bandage on it. Ugh, let's dress that wound. Mm-hmm. And then he goes up to barricade the door, and there's that weird scene. And I don't know, you listen to the commentary. So he's telling his wife and daughter, like, this will only take me a minute. But is it this point already that they can't understand what he's saying?
It is. And I didn't catch it when I watched the movie. But in the commentary, he says this is the moment where they don't understand the words he is using because he's not using words.
Yeah, see, I didn't catch that. And there are times in this movie, and I think times where they do it effectively, where you either see through his eyes or you hear his wife or his daughter talking to him and you cannot understand their words. And the camera will do like a 360 pan around him, and the entire visual style will change, and what the characters are saying becomes clear. So it really brings that into focus that, sometimes you can hear, you can understand. You are now not the animal. You can understand the human speech.
I took it as the camera being a third party, and the camera as it rotates around, you're seeing wolf vision, you're hearing you don't know what they're saying, and they're looking very wolf vision-y with their eyes glowing, and you can see, yada, yada, yada. And then as it comes back around to them, the camera starts to clear, and the light, they did a lot of stuff with light. And this was also in the commentary. The wolf sees everything darker. So anytime it's the wolf and what the wolf is seeing, the lights are dimmed. And they're blue. They did a lot of practical blue lighting. Dim, turn everything down, turn up the blue. And then when it comes to camera coming around 360 to her, dial down the blue, bring up the lights. Now we are in human world. It's her vision or her version of what's going on. So the third party, the third person that the camera is being is going between wolf and human. It's not him going between wolf and human.
Oh yeah, no. That's what I meant too. Yeah, it is. It's not his senses necessarily. It's you realizing that his senses are turned off and turned on in these certain ways.
What? No.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, Mark Wahlberg. Sometimes there's a couple times when it really does that effectively, and I think it's cool. It's one of the cool things about this movie. And
the good, the bad, and the ugly of this movie, I marked it down as the good because I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
The heightened senses of, it's right around this time that he hears tap, 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 tap.
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like, what the fuck is that? It's really fucking loud. And it's an Australian huntsman spider that he finds
What is going on with that?
upstairs, and it's walking on the wall, and it's tap, 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 with each little footstep that it's making.
Is this supposed to be in New Zealand or something? Because
No, it's supposed to be in America. They shot it in New
Northern
Zealand. There's no
California.
spiders in New Zealand. There's no fucking spiders like that
What?
in New Zealand. Yeah.
Well, there's no spiders like that anywhere except Australia.
exactly.
because
but Lee's from
I've-
Australia, and he wanted a huntsman.
I lived in the Olympic Mountains for a few months for a while, which is very much like the vibe I get from this area in there.
Is
And
that
I
when
was
you were
like,
training for the Olympics?
That's right.
I don't remember this.
Decathlon. It was beer drinking, hacky sack, pot smoking.
I hear good things about the pot smoking championships and the hacky sack World Cup.
I was in training
Sure.
until the accident.
You spilled a bong on your leg.
Let's just say something happened and I had to leave it in a jar in Dick Miller's bookshop. But yeah, that huntsman spider, I was like, there's no spiders like this anywhere. And first I was like, oh, his senses are being heightened and he can hear this spider. And then I saw the size of that spider. I was like, anybody could hear that fucking monster. My God, that thing is terrifying.
It's like the size of your palm.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of nope right there.
Exactly. I'm
And I
not
don't
a fan
have
of
a
spiders.
I don't have a thing for spiders. Like, I don't mind spiders, honestly, but I wouldn't want that fucking thing in the house.
I do
No
not
thanks.
like them. And that is why I will not live in Australia.
Yeah, and this is also when the wife comes up and notices, oh, your arm has gotten nastier, too. And she takes the wrap off, and you can see it's all fucking chooched up. It's all
starting
gnarly
to
on the
rot.
inside. Yeah.
Almost.
And he has a moment where he just kind of freaks out. He's like itching it, itching it, itching it. And then he just starts gnawing into his own arm.
Yeah, which is very animalistic, and that's
Yeah.
cool. It's gross. but
Totally
it's cool.
gross. Totally gross. Needed the cone of shame. I was like, there it is. Put the cone of shame on this guy.
Yeah, otherwise he's just going to chew his arm off.
He is. But that comes later in the movie.
Bad dog.
Yeah. And they will have a couple of other altercations with the other wolf man that's still out there somewhere. One time it grabs his leg from the doggy door, tries to pull him down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just slowly, I mean, I suppose rapidly over the course of the night, but just getting more and more animalistic. His hair is falling out. His eyes start to get all discolored.
Yeah,
and
again,
yellowed.
great execution on all this.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't hip to the design so much.
But they decide, mom and daughter decide, we've got to get out of here. Nobody's coming. We don't have a cell phone signal. And that's when she takes the car battery or the battery to the truck.
Yeah.
Everybody follow me. They go out to the truck. Of course, it won't start right away. Finally, they get it started. Mm-hmm. She slams the trunk down. She gets back in the truck. The windows are covered in filth.
Yeah.
She hits the wipers, and there's the other wolf
Dad wolf.
man.
Dad wolf jump scare.
Wolf. Dad.
Yeah, good.
And yeah, it punches through the window. She's got a butcher knife. Stab, 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 stab. And they're running away. They run on top of the greenhouse.
Which seems odd to me.
Yeah, plastic sheeting, some PVC pipe frame of this thing. I don't know.
Why do you feel like this is a safe place to go?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you be safer inside the truck?
Or the barn or anywhere. But no, they're on top of this as wolf.
She did get the
Dad.
truck started, right?
She did. But then he punched through the window and he tore the gear shift off, so she couldn't do anything. She couldn't put it in gear.
I mean, you could have figured it out.
Well, something. But they're getting harassed from below in this greenhouse, and Wolf Man, he essentially can communicate, you guys run to the house. I'm going to distract him over there. So he jumps off the greenhouse. He heads over there. Wolf Dad. We're calling him Wolf Dad. I mean, spoiler alert, but he will find out later it is his father.
Yeah. pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, because the girls run to the house and they hear some howling and some yelping in the distance, and they're locked in the house when the husband comes back in, and he looks like shit. I mean, he's getting close to Brundlefly at this point.
Yeah.
From Cronenberg's The Fly. He's very gross. He has gone through some really disgusting transformations. He's looking real slimy, too.
Yeah. And there's a touching moment with the daughter where she's trying to sort of call him back a little bit.
Yeah.
And you get the feeling like he's being called back for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then he pukes on the floor.
Yeah. And pukes up a finger.
Pukes up a finger. Of Wolf Dad.
Yeah. Who will come bursting through the door again.
Fingerless.
Yeah. Fingerless and pissed off.
Yeah.
And they fight, and he knocks out our hero for a bit.
It's like Beast versus Wolverine.
Yeah. And then there's Julia Garner, mom, with a fireplace poker trying to keep it from getting into the room with the kid. And it looks like he's going to take her out when Blake has woke up, tackles him, and then he bites his throat out.
Yeah.
And then as he's sitting there with a mouth full of flesh and the blood dripping down and it's full bestial mode, he looks at the arm of the other Wolfman and he sees his dad's tattoo.
Yep.
And you cue Cats in the Cradle. My boy was just like me. My boy was just like me. Yeah.
Oh, the wolf's in the cradle and the silver moon.
I legit had that thought when I saw that tattoo. I was like, yeah, my boy's just like me, which I think is what this movie kind of is striving for in some ways.
And I also thought, this isn't supposed to be a surprise, right? Because it's absolutely not a surprise. Yeah. They almost treat it like a gotcha moment, like, aha, see? And I'm like, well, yeah.
But he's going to be descending in even more bestial nature. I think he leaves the house, right?
Yeah,
he leaves
and
the house
that's when he has that transformation out on the lawn, and that's where you see the fucking cool puppet, and you see the hand with the bones moving underneath it, and that was, a puppet and a legit element. None of this is digital. This is all
cool.
practical, and it's cool. Really, really well done. And,
the fingernails push out, like his fingernails get pushed out as fingernails below, longer fingernails stretch out from the hand.
Done better in the Howling, just saying.
You know what the difference is? The Howling gives you like palm side. You see the fingernails come out, right?
Yeah.
And this one is showing you the other side of the hand. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think it's better in the Howling too. But this is a cool little effect that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the stuff is well executed for sure.
And he's now trying to fight his animal nature, and he is losing. And the girls know it, so they are going to try and get the fuck out of there. And they end up running away and eventually find the truck from earlier where Derek had fallen out and gotten torn apart by the wolf dad.
Did you notice the truck said Pierce Rental?
Yes.
Jack Pierce did the original makeup of the Wolfman.
Oh, well, that's a nice little Easter egg.
That's a little nod, little Easter egg. However,
Jack Pierce would be rolling in his fucking grave. I'm sorry. It says nothing to do with the Wolfman. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with the Wolfman. I wish it had had a different title. You're right. Face of the Wolf would have been much better.
You know what's more like the Wolfman? Wolfman Jack is more like the Wolfman than this.
That's right. All the vampires and mummies and Frankensteins. I can't do a fucking Wolfman Jack. That's a tough one on the throat.
No one can do a Wolfman Jack without wanting to cough up your lungs in a minute.
Jesus, see? I can't do it.
No, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
They're racing through the woods. They see the truck. Oh, there's Derek's body. They see the rifle. Okay, and they manage to scurry back up into the deer blind just as Blake and his father had done early in the moment. You get a little callback as he comes up the ladder. And
You even get the same steamy rising callback from the very opening sequence as well.
I mean, I'm not sure it was so good that it needed a callback, but here we are. And his hand comes up and he rises up, and you see sort of in the now rising dawn, he's turned into just a terrible looking creature. And the daughter has a moment where they have that connection again, and she says, he just wants this to end, or something to that effect.
Sure.
He growls and lunges, and
and gets shot.
she takes him out with the rifle.
End of movie.
Yep, they go down, they have a little tender moment with his corpse. I mean, honestly, he's still alive down there. I think if I was that mom, I'd be like, don't get near
it. Yeah, we've seen enough horror movies, don't get near him. But he doesn't do anything.
They're there, and then, you see a shot of him, and he's looking up, and he sees the kind of canopy of the trees from below, which is a shot that they had done earlier in the movie. And so it calls back to that. You know what it doesn't call back to is a wasp getting eaten by a bunch of fucking ants. What was that about?
That doesn't really make much sense to me.
I don't get it. And we didn't even talk about the moment in the movie where she catches him in a bear trap. Or not even a bear trap. I don't think it's a bear trap, but some sort of trap. Catches his foot.
And you're thinking, of course, you have to chew your own leg off because that's what a wolf would do, and that's what he does. And then he's crawling, and you're thinking after a minute, you're like, well, you're actually getting along pretty good without that foot. He was still able to climb a ladder.
He's got spirit. He's got spirit.
Really and I understand what this movie's trying to do. It's trying to say the beast within. It's trying to say you have no control over it. It's trying to say something about family relationships, whether it's a father-son, cats in the cradle.
I think so.
Father-daughter, trying to repair your family, trying to protect your family from the evil that's out there, and then wanting yourself to be taken out before you can attack your family. I get it. I just don't care.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, too. I mean, it's not like there's not a lot in what you just said. Those are good themes. Those are good story points. Those are good things to ground your story in. It's just, I don't care. And again, maybe it's because I'm disappointed that it's called Wolf Man. And it should have just had a different title, Face of the Wolf, something like that. I wouldn't necessarily be thinking it's a werewolf movie, because it's not a werewolf movie.
No, it isn't. But going back to werewolf movies for a second, do you know who liked The Howling?
Gene Siskel?
Gene Siskel liked The Howling. He gave it 3.5 stars. He thought it was actually pretty good. Yeah.
All right.
You know who didn't like it?
Roger Ebert.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Come on. What would Gene Siskel say about Wolf Man?
Well, Gene was always into visuals like the wolf vision. So he would have definitely given it points for the way that it treats sensory issues in this movie. And I hate to say it, but Gene also might have been a fan of the way that it subverts the traditional werewolf tropes. Unfortunately for me, it's werewolf tropes is what you want.
Absolutely. It is what you want.
You don't make a movie called Dracula and decide, you know what? He's not going to be a count from Transylvania. There's going to be no love story. He's not going to be able to turn into a bat, and he won't have sharp teeth. How
Wait
about
a minute. You're almost talking about Nosferatu.
No, come on.
I'm kidding.
There's a love story. He's a count in Transylvania.
You're right.
He wants you to jump on it crazy style.
So
bounce on it.
It's so good.
I wonder what AI Gene Siskel says about Wolf Man.
Oh, do you have it queued up?
I walked into Wolf Man 2024 expecting a thrilling modern take on the classic Universal monster. What I got was a visually stunning yet narratively messy film that fails to deliver on its full potential. The special effects are indeed breathtaking, with the Wolf Man's transformation being both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The action sequences are fast-paced and suspenseful, keeping me on the edge of my seat. However, the storytelling is where the film falters. The characters are paper-thin. Well done, AI Gene Siskel. With the protagonist's motivations being unclear and his actions often feeling convenient rather than organic. The script tries to cram in too many themes from identity to community without fully... He really got it. Without fully exploring any of them. Despite its flaws, Wolfman 2024 remains a compelling watch.
Wait, what movie was this? Was he looking at a different movie?
Man.
Oh, okay.
2024, sorry. Remains a compelling watch thanks to its stunning visuals and committed performances. It's a shame the storytelling doesn't quite live up to the film's technical achievements. I'd recommend Wolfman 2024 to fans of monster movies and action horror, but temper your expectations and don't expect a masterpiece.
Temper your expectations is an understatement for me. And again, because it's called fucking Wolfman. Mm-hmm. You know?
What's it called?
Wolfman?
No, I don't think it is called that.
Fuck, did I watch the wrong movie?
Wait a minute. Oh, Wolf Man transforming takes a long time. It's 8 hours. 8 hours go by
within
his family. Pray, look at the way they're dressed. All right.
Where can people find us?
Well, they can find us all over the internet. We've got an Instagram, Whole Damn Thing 13 at Instagram. We've got a Threads, also Whole Damn Thing 13 at Threads.
Gmail.
Yeah. The Whole Damn Thing 13 at Gmail. Let us know if we were wrong on this particular thing. Let us know if you like the Wolfman. Let us know why. We might even read your email.
If you like the Wolfman, that's cool. I also like the Wolfman.
Yeah.
But if you like
Man,
we will have words.
Yes. And we will read your words.
In fact, will.
Yeah, I want to see someone say that we are wrong and tell us why we're wrong. And that AI Gene Siskel doesn't understand what he's doing either. Let's face it, AI Gene Siskel is a titan in the industry. Don't forget to vote for the bracket bloodbath, which we are currently have going on right now. And we've weeded out some of them. We are now down to the final 2. So let us know what you think. You can find it. Join the Patreon. We need supporters. This show is supported by Out of Pocket and you. So if you, the listener, like what you're hearing, by all means, please join the Patreon. Throw us a couple of bucks. There's a lot of extra stuff in there. You also get access to the Discord, where you're going to be able to watch the live shows when we do the watch-alongs, which we're going to have one coming up pretty soon. And there's a lot of good stuff. The Patreon's got a lot of stuff you're not going to get anywhere else because it's exclusive to there. So find us at The Whole Damn Thing, patreon.com.
We're having a good time doing this. We're hoping that you're having a good time listening to it. Yeah, so if you want to throw us a couple of bucks, that's great. But if all you can do is like, subscribe, hit that bell, write a review, we'd love that too. Any support you can give is much, much, much appreciated. Thanks so much for listening.
Tell your horror friends. Like
your what friends? Oh, horror friends.
Yes.
I mean, we don't discriminate. Tell your horror friends too.
Tell them as well. And tell them to send us an email at thewholedamnthing13@gmail.com. Now, Tyler, take us out.
The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Well, that wraps up this episode, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your announcer, Tyler Patton, on the head, the tail, the whole damn thing, with Mike D. McCarty and James Knight, industry professionals. Join us next time for Child's Play and the Companion. That ought to be interesting. Oh, I'm supposed to not mention that she's...
We specifically said don't say that.
What?
It's a spoiler.
Spoiler? She's but...
You said it again.
Oh.